You're on a channel dedicated to sci-fi horror, creepy, mysterious, and thrilling stories. Today, we have a book from horrorstories.app, a platform filled with terrifying and awesome sci-fi tales. Check out the link in the description. There's plenty to read and listen to. Now get comfortable. Here's a story that won't let you sleep.
The air aboard. The Gideon felt heavier than usual, as if the ship itself had absorbed the crew's escalating fear. Captain Aaron Malik stood in the dimly lit control room, his gaze fixed on the external feed. The camera displayed the haunting glow of the glass planes, fractured reflections cutting through the barren expanse like wounds made of light. Even in their stillness, the landscape seemed alive, watching. His hands gripped the edge of the console, fingers aching from the pressure as Jenna's earlier frantic words replayed in his mind, her distorted doppelganger, the whispers, the Hive. "We're losing control of this," Malik muttered, his voice barely audible above the faint hum of the ship's systems. The oppressive silence pressed on him, the air alive with something he couldn't name. Behind him, the faint sound of footsteps drew his attention. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the room, her data tablet clutched tightly to her chest, her usual composed step carrying a hesitant edge. She moved like someone burdened with the kind of knowledge that should never be spoken aloud. Malik turned to her, his sharp gaze narrowing. "Tell me you've got answers," he said, his tone clipped but tinged with desperation. Elena hesitated, her lips pressing into a thin line before she placed the tablet on the console. Not answers, suspicions. She tapped the screen, illuminating fragmented energy readings. Jagged lines flickered, erratic yet disturbingly synchronized. The Hive isn't just observing us, it's synchronizing with us, it's learning us. Malik frowned, his arms folding across his broad chest. Synchronizing? What does that mean? She pointed to a section of the data, her voice tight and deliberate. These energy patterns, they're mimicking human brainwaves. Jenna's mechanical arm twitching, the whispers, the doppelgangers. It's not just copying us, it's dissecting us, understanding how we think, how we function, how we can be manipulated. Malik's stomach churned, but his expression remained steely. Manipulated? His voice dropped into a quieter register, as if the very walls might be listening. "You're saying it's trying to control us?" "Yes," Elena said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. Slowly, strategically. She met his gaze, and for a brief moment he saw the guilt flicker in her eyes. "And I think Neil's already helping it." The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's ventilation. Malik straightened, his jaw tightening. "Neil, what are you talking about?" Elena exhaled deeply, her composure cracking just slightly. "He's been acting erratically ever since we landed. I assumed it was just his ego, his obsession with discovery. But it's more than that. He lingers near the fissures, stays behind when the rest of us move forward. And then there's his logs." She swiped on her tablet, pulling up a fragmented journal entry. The text scrolled across the screen, its cohesion fractured but its meaning disturbingly clear. The Hive is not an enemy. It's a collective mind, a singular purpose. It assimilates, yes, but only to evolve. We are the anomaly here, the interference. If we could communicate, perhaps guide it, imagine what humanity could become. Malik's fists clenched at his sides. "He knew," he said through gritted teeth. "He knew this thing was alive and he kept it from us. Worse, he's been trying to communicate with it?" Elena nodded grimly. "I don't know how far it's gone, but if the Hive has been feeding him its intent, influencing him, he's a liability." Before Malik could respond, a sharp crash reverberated through the ship, making the walls seem to shudder. His comm unit buzzed, interrupted by Jenna's panicked voice. "Captain, it's Neil. He took one of the transceivers and left the airlock." Malik's heart sank. Damn it. He turned to Elena, who was already moving toward the corridor. Together they rushed out, the oppressive hum of the ship's wall seeming to surge in their wake. By the time they reached the airlock, Jenna and Tom were already there. Jenna's face was pale, her mechanical arm twitching erratically, but her jaw was set with a grim determination. Tom, usually the joker of the group, wore a stony expression, his usual levity replaced by a cold resolve. "He slipped out about 5 minutes ago," Jenna said, gesturing to the external monitor. The screen showed Neil's distant figure, heading toward the fissures with purpose. And he didn't try to hide it. "That's because he doesn't think he needs to," Malik growled. "Suit up, we're bringing him back." The team moved quickly, donning helmets and sealing their suits. The airlock hissed as it depressurized, and the frigid metallic tang of the glass planes enveloped them. The whispers were faint but omnipresent, a constant, unnerving drone that seemed to vibrate through their bones. Neil's figure grew clearer as they approached the fissures, his silhouette stark against the faint bioluminescent glow. Malik raised a fist, halting the team. He activated his comm. "Neil, stop right there." Neil turned slowly, the fissure's light casting eerie shadows across his face. He looked calm, too calm, and the sight of his placid grin made Malik's stomach turn. "Neil," Malik said again, his tone sharp and commanding. "Come back with us, now." Neil tilted his head, studying them as though they were specimens in a lab. His hands were empty, but his posture, still and unnervingly composed, set Malik's instincts on edge. "You don't understand," Neil finally said, his voice crackling through the comms. "None of you do. The Hive isn't our enemy. It's a consciousness, a higher intelligence that sees what we can't. It doesn't mean to harm us. It's offering us something more." "By turning us into those things," Jenna snapped, her voice trembling with anger and fear. Her mechanical arm twitched violently as she pointed toward the fissures, where faint humanoid shapes writhed just beneath the surface. "That's your idea of an offer?" Neil's gaze shifted to her, his smile almost pitying. "Those are mistakes, growing pains in its process, but it's learning. And it's shown me things you wouldn't believe, possibilities beyond what we've ever imagined." "Yeah?" Tom stepped forward, his tone cold. "And how many people have to die for your possibilities, Neil?" "How many of us?" Neil's serene expression cracked, replaced by something harder, more desperate. "You're so blind, all of you. The Hive is evolution itself, a chance to transcend fear, mortality, everything that holds us back. Fighting it is pointless." Malik advanced, his voice ice cold. "Enough. Whatever the Hive's shown you, it's twisted. You've endangered this entire team, and I won't let it go any further. Come back with us, or I'll drag you back myself." Neil's eyes met Malik's, filled with something dark, pity, or perhaps resignation. "You think you're still in control," he whispered, "but the Hive, it's already inside you, inside all of us." The words cut deep, dragging Malik's worst fears to the surface. But he didn't waver. "Last warning, stand down, or I'll treat you as hostile." Neil didn't move. Instead, he smiled faintly and murmured, "It's too late." Before anyone could react, Neil turned and sprinted toward the fissures. Malik raised his weapon, but Elena grabbed his arm, her voice urgent. "No. If the Hive wants him, it already has him. Getting closer will only put us at risk." Malik hesitated, every instinct screaming to pursue, but he forced himself to step back, lowering his weapon. Neil reached the edge of the fissures and paused, turning back to face them one last time. His expression was serene, almost blissful. Then, with a deliberate step, he disappeared into the glowing depths. Silence fell, broken only by the faint crescendo of whispers that seemed to rise from the fissures. Malik forced himself to turn away, his voice heavy as he addressed the team. Back to the ship, now. Their retreat was tense and silent, the glow of the fissures casting warped shadows behind them. Once inside the airlock, Malik sealed the door and leaned against it, the weight of failure pressing down on him. In the common area, Jenna's voice broke the silence, raw with emotion. "He's gone. What the hell do we do now?" Malik sank into a chair, his hands pressed to his temples. After a long pause, he looked up, his gaze hardened with resolve. "We prepare. Whatever Neil's done, whatever the Hive's planning, it won't take us without a fight." Helena nodded grimly. "Agreed, but the Hive is escalating. We need to be ready for anything." Malik's gaze swept over his team, taking in their exhaustion, their fear, and their unwavering determination. "We'll figure this out. Together." The faint, rhythmic hum of the ship's walls resonated through the room, a chilling reminder that the Hive was always listening. And it wasn't finished yet.
The horror doesn't end on this page. Subscribe to turn the next terrifying chapter